Keith, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no worries, man. Just a quick introduction about who you are and your background. So you enlisted in the North Carolina Army National Guard in 1998. 2001, you went on active duty, got stationed at Fort Benning as military police. 2003, you went to the Special Forces Q course, qualification course, and you graduated in 2005. Got assigned to 2nd Battalion, 3rd Group as a Special Forces Weapons Sergeant. You've had 7 deployments, 2 to Afghanistan on an ODA, and 3 tours to Iraq as part of the Combatant Commanders and Extremist Force Company. You were an instructor at the Special Forces Qualification Course, where you reclassed when your time was up to be a Special Forces Engineer Sergeant. Went to 3rd Battalion, 3rd Group, where you deployed on 2 counter-narcotics trafficking trips to Tajikistan. After battling issues with PTS and TBI, you were assigned to Advanced Skills Company, where you started the medical retirement process. You medically retired from the Army with 18 and a half years of service. After struggling with PTSD and your TBIs, you got your service dog Quill in October of 2018, which you say changed your life. On 22nd of July, 2022, you founded Joint Task Force K9's with your wife, Lori, to combat veteran and law enforcement suicide. You're a 4th-generation veteran who lives in Myrtle Beach with your wife, Lori, and you got 2 children, Christian and Abigail. Does that pretty much sum it up?
Yep. That's my life in a nutshell.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. No, I'm just messing with you. So to start with, before we get into your organization, I'd just like to talk a little bit about your background and kind of like your PTS and your TBIs and just some of the stuff you experienced to know that you had all of those issues.
Okay. Well, I guess it all started about halfway through my deployment trips while under 3rd Special Forces Group. Sometime in around 2008 or so, I was diagnosed with not quite PTSD, but they were thinking, okay, depression, all this stuff. So they put me on a bunch of medications. And then, I continued through with training and going on deployments. And then all of a sudden, I was getting ready to go to Afghanistan in the end of 2014, because it was a 2014-2015 rotation. And they basically said, hey, you can't deploy being on these control meds, even though I had deployed on them multiple times. So I go downrange. I had to quit cold turkey off the meds, which is never a good thing when you're coming off of medication. And about 3 months into the deployment, I totally had a breakdown. I was no longer sleeping. I was, at the time, I was an 18 Charlie, so I was having to walk a lot of the route to go from one location to another due to IEDs and EFPs. And during that time, it was the drawdown, so everybody was coming back to Bagram, and I think they were still coming back to Kandahar as well. So we were working out of Bagram and having to go to our training site when we wanted to train and stay on site for a couple of days at a time. But all that ended up coming to a point because, of the lack of, and just always working. I always had to be working and have things going on to keep my time occupied, to keep my mind from going to these dark places that it was going. Well, I've seen some mental health while I was downrange, and the next thing you know, they're like, "Hey, we're going to send you home. You need to get some extra help that you can't get here. You're already had to quit controlled substance medication, cold turkey, and we think that it's best for you to go home." So basically, they sent me home, and one thing led to another. I just went on a downhill path from there. Totally self-destruction, irritability, depression, you name it, anxiety, anger, sad. I mean, the whole gambit. I just could not control or regulate any of my emotions. And I was really reactive to my environment around me. Uh, so they ended up sending me to the sixth floor there at Womack at Fort Bragg, and I did some evaluations because I was having suicidal ideology at the time, and so they changed up my meds, put me back on some control meds, and then they sent me back to the support company so I could kind of um, continue to train and continue to help the other guys that were still active and still doing missions. But I still had a lot of experience and knowledge that I could share with them. So I was trying to do that and also take care of myself medically. And it just over time it didn't work out. I had a suicide attempt shortly after that the same year, and that would have been 2015. And next thing you know, they put me back to the sixth floor and they started the med board process. So on me getting out, and ended up medically retiring at the 18 and a half year mark.
I know a lot of guys in our community at some point or another, those that suffer with mental health always look at suicide as being like the answer. And it's tragic, and it's one of the things that just really sucks.
Yeah,
Can you share with like your thought process and then how you countered that thought process?
for sure. So for my thought process, and at the time, suicide was the only answer to get out of the situation I was in. Uh, I was, I already had one wife, divorced under my belt. With two kids. Didn't have a good relationship with my kids because I was always deployed, and every time I came home, I had to be the disciplinary, and so there was no family life for me. I had started dating another soldier during that time, and we were going through some really rough times. We were trying to move her down, and she just couldn't adapt to what I had going on, and so that really kind of pushed me in that direction as well. So yeah, suicide, as far as I was aware and was thinking, hey, this is the right answer. Like I don't have to put up with the pain anymore that I'm having. I don't have to put up with all the mental issues. My kids didn't have a relationship with my kids, so I didn't have to, try to end them over again or anything. So far as my way out, it was definitely going to be suicide. And but now looking back at it, that's probably one of the worst things I could have done because yeah, it would have fixed my problems, but then my problems would have just went to other people, right? My family members, my friends, um, and I'm a big believer. You know, you kind of like flies stick together, right? So um, if my brothers and sisters see me have a suicide, then why not them type of situation, right? So it's kind of like misery loves company type situations,
Yeah.
and I think that's why we think it's just the last straw. Hey, this is the only way to get out of it, and a lot of times it is because we don't have the help that we need. Uh, we don't have the proper training prior to all this type of, especially in the special forces and your infantry and your combat MOSs. Um, we don't get that pre-training to go to combat. We get combat training, but we don't get anything to work on that mental health during that. And then even after the deployments, we don't get that help as well. So ultimately, because of that, we get stuck in this. You either kill it or be killed, and I think the guys that are with PTSD can't kill it, so they kill it themselves. And I think that's where their mindset's at. That's where I think my mindset was at the time as well. But ultimately, there is a way out. Ultimately, through God, in our opinion, and this is what started the whole process of Joint Task Force K9's, and how my dog picture and how he saved my life. because he gave me uh, that stability, that mission that I needed to do. Because the one thing about the guys in the military and stuff, most of us are protectors, we're fixers, um, and as long as we have somebody to take care of or something to take care of, we will do that. It's the time when we stop having that to take care of, or those people to take care of, because we don't take care of ourselves, right? We are trying to take care of everybody else around us, and I think it's because we're missing that, hey, that self gratification of taking care of ourselves. So, and I think that's why the guys do what they do, because they just don't feel like they have anywhere to turn. Usually our circles are really small, and then especially the guys that are their way out the door, or retiring, or medical retiring. Once you leave service, there is no more support channel there. Right? You don't have your teammates anymore. You don't have the community that times people will move from where they're at, and and then you don't have the same like-minded people around you. And I think that's another reason why we start heading down that drain, is because we don't have the guys to our left and right that are on active duty now out with the civilian world. It's hard for us to slow down and just be a civilian. We lose all idea of what made us who we are, because we've done the combat and military so long. We're stuck in that mindset.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I've seen it and I've felt it. And for me, when I think back to, experiencing a traumatic event, like losing a guy, and then there's no time to grieve. I carried one of my buddies onto the plane in a body bag. And the next day we're back out on a different op. And this was
Mhm.
before I went special operations. And it's just constant. It was 365 days of combat. And there was no time to, hey, you just experienced something. Let's process this. Let's figure. And I don't think anybody really knew or understood what we were getting into and how to address it. But yeah, and then when the chaplains did come around or they'd offer help, if you never wanted to be the one guy that's like, hey, I need to go talk to somebody. I need help. Because then you're thinking,
Exactly.
I'm letting my team down. They're still going out on operations. And I think back to times when I had to go, I was the money guy, had to go turn funds in, and my team gets in a firefight while I'm gone. And I hated the fact that I was not there for it.
Yep.
And yeah, we put it on ourselves. And then when we need the help, we don't ever ask for help.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's because if we ask for help, we look weak. And as special forces guys and these combat infantry guys and combat MLFs, we're raised and trained to not be weak. We're raised to take a knee, drink water if you need a break, but never raise your hand and say, I need help. Because if you're needing help, then somebody hasn't done their job, right? And not necessarily the soldier, but somebody above them hasn't done their job and looked after the soldiers. Um, and that's what I really went through. They tried to take my tab away and some other things um during my med board process, because I did get in some trouble, but I took responsibility. And if it wasn't for my past leadership writing letters for me saying that, hey, I was failed by the unit, I was failed by the medical system, um, I probably would have had my tab revoked and everything else. I mean, out of a group of guys that were going through that process, I was probably one of the only guys that got to keep their tab. And it was in an age where they were just crucifying anybody that really said, hey, I'm messed up, or that didn't say, hey, I'm messed up, and tried to fix things on their own with, drugs or alcohol, or in my case, women. It was just different things. So, um, I think we just got to start addressing stuff before it happens. in the military where the guys understand what's going on instead of letting them try to figure it out on their own. Um, because if we try to figure out for our own, there's only two answers: kill it or be killed. And if you can't kill it, then the easiest next step is you. So
Yeah. I think a lot of the persecution of guys, like some of it's probably warranted, probably a
mhm.
lot of it. Um, but I think in situations with like mental health, and again, not understanding the effects that it has on people, is that usually the actions of drinking too much or taking drugs or chasing women or whatever the case may be, it's usually like a byproduct of like just struggling and trying to find something. And
Yep,
then they
something to
just,
fulfill that need and want and desire to make you feel good with yourself.
yeah. And then they just punish you, not actually look, which you have to be held responsible for your actions.
Yeah.
But it's still like, let's get to the root cause because there's something going on to make you do this. And
Yep.
it's, yeah, that's, yeah, sucks.
Yeah, but I think they're starting to realize. I think they're starting to realize all that, especially with this 22 a day thing. And in my opinion, that 22 a day is really a short number. It's way more than that, in my opinion. So, but we'll
Yeah.
see where it goes.
I looked at the numbers for the 2024 VA assessment, and they said it's dropped down to like 17 point something. But other websites say that doesn't take into account, like that's just the straight up suicides.
The known of probably through the VA itself.
Yeah,
Yep.
they don't account for the guys that are self medicating, that are drinking themselves to death, taking pills,
Yep.
that are dying because of their mental health and just they just don't care. And so they just hit rock
Mhm.
bottom, they pass away for whatever reason. Like that's still suicide, but no one wants to say that the number is really like 44 a day. They just want to
Right.
make it keep looking better and better and better. So they'll adjust the metrics just to say, hey, look, we're making progress.
Yep.
Well,
And then another thing, they just want to throw drugs at the situation, right? And drugs only mask the symptoms. They don't fix the root cause, and that's why we started Joint Task Force K9's, so we can and start adjusting those root causes.
yeah. So speaking of that, how'd you hear about service dogs and how'd you get Quill?
So, shortly after I got out, I moved down to Myrtle Beach, and I started the Golf Academy of America. I've got a lot of back issues and just skeletal muscle issues. So they said, hey, the best thing you can do is stay moving, stay limber, loose. Golf is a good option, and there was a lot at the time, and there still is, but there's a lot of access to nonprofits that provide golf for veterans and stuff. And I look at golf as it's really not, it's a fight against yourself because it's all mental basically, which is a good thing for PTSD as well. Because if you can get out there on a golf course and control your game and not get angry because you hit the ball in the foot or into the water or into the bunker, that's part of fixing yourself, right? Is stopping that from happening and dealing with that stress or whatever on the golf course. So I think that's another tool. It's getting active and doing something, especially when it's a battle against yourself. Uh, Most other sports are battles against other teams, right? But because golf is only about yourself, then you can really work with yourself and help uh, with controlling your emotions uh, and those short time emotions, those triggers that might hit you. So I moved here to Myrtle Beach to pick up golf and stay loose and younger and therapy and everything. And I ran into an organization. It's called Special Operations Wounded Warriors here in the Myrtle Beach area, and they really seen the need for me to have a dog, a service dog. And so I did. I reached out to them and was like, "Hey, I'm ready for this. If you can help me out." And I just graduated from the Golf Academy of America, so I had no clue what I was going to do. So for all intents and purposes, I was going to be back on the couch again, you know, battling my demons in the darkness that you do when the guys and gals get on the couch. Because we're big believers that, hey, if you're sitting on the couch, then you're dying, right? Especially us young guys and stuff. We need to get moving off the couch, have a perfect purpose, and be self motivating. But we lose a lot of that when we get out because we lost our way. So the dog helps with that. The special operations were they gave me my dog Will, and I say he saved my life because he did. It gave me motivation to get off the couch. He gave me motivation because, when you're taking care, remember when you're taking care of somebody or something, you're responsible. So as a special forces soldier, failure's not an option to me. So I would strive to take care of that dog the best I could, right? Train with that dog, work with that dog. And what I seen was by doing that, that dog got me back out in public and got me working with people and helping others and gave me a new purpose. And that purpose is to go maybe find those people that go missing, the elderly from the patients with the Alzheimer's dementia that won't call. If I can get a phone call, I can come with my dog and track these patients. So the dog is not only helping me get off the couch, but it's also helping me provide a service to the community, which is what we leave and lose when we leave the military, right? We're no longer providing a service, which is that's one of the reasons we joined the military a lot of times was we wanted to help out the bigger picture in our country and make sure our loved ones and are taken care of and don't have to go through that. So the dog forces you to do all that again. And we tell the guys that, hey, if you get out, move with your dog and do things with your dog, that's all part of the healing process. Because as long as you keep engaged with society and not sitting on the couch, that's half the battle. So my dog saved my life, and I started working for other nonprofits, helping them run their dog programs. And my wife came up to me one day and was like, "Hey, to stand up an organization so you can give out more dogs." And I see a need for dogs, and that's one reason. You're not helping those special operations warriors and the Shadow Warrior Project with Mark Geis. I seen a need for more dogs to go out because I was seeing what the dogs were doing for the guys, and I seen what my dog did for me. Um, so my wife basically stuck a boot in my butt and was like, "Hey, you need to do this." So I find myself on Google one day, and I'm what's it take to start a nonprofit? And then the next thing you know, in June of 22, I'm creating Joint Task Force K9's, and I basically the company that gave me Quill, um, and it's a company out of Canada, and they they gave the dog with their philosophy, and their philosophy is God based. The dog is given us to us for a purpose to help us walk through life. We just got to learn to listen to it and communicate with it. We believe that the dog sees that spiritual side that we can't see, or that third realm that we can't see, third dimension. And as long as we can communicate with these dogs and use these dogs, we feel that God has given these dogs to us because they're the only animal on the earth that will leave its kind to be with man. And, a horse will, but as soon as you stop feeding the horse will go off and get its own food and never come back. But a dog, um, especially when you're bonded with a dog, and especially the genetics that we use, that dog will live and die by your side, no matter.
Yeah, I
And we
noticed.
feel that. Go ahead.
I was going to say I noticed that. So, I got a dog from you, Kiowa, and she follows me everywhere. Like, if I get up and walk into the room, even if I tell her, just wait, I'm just going to get a glass of water.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, she doesn't understand I'm going to get a glass of water, but she's like, I'm coming with you. And I have seen multiple times over the last, 6 months now, that in the middle of the night, she'll start whimpering to wake me up. And it's because I'm having a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'll be out in public and she never barks. She ignores all these other dogs. Kids are her weakness. She loves children, but so that's the only thing she struggles with. But she'll alert me when there's a perceived danger nearby
Mm-hmm.
that I'm completely unaware of. And I shared with you this story before. We were up in Boone and we go to this outdoor festival, and she starts going crazy, just barking and whimpering and trying to go after something. So I immediately think what she's always doing when she acts like that is there's a kid nearby.
Yeah.
So I'm like, phooey that, knock it off. And then I turn around and look, and there's a tent set up at this festival of witches and
Mm-hmm.
selling brooms and potions. And I'm not talking about like they weren't dressed in like your gothic all black, but it was
Right.
very clear, like the name that was up on their tent and everything. It was very Wiccan. And
It's
she
a
was,
spiritual side that they see.
yeah, and she was going crazy and wanting to like go over there. So I looked at Sarah and I said, we're leaving. And because that's one thing I've noticed for me is like, I don't like public situations. And so
Mm-hmm.
she diverts all my attention to her. So I'm not worried about people looking at me because I'm very self-conscious and I believe the world revolves around me. So everybody's always judging me when I'm out in public. And that's why I don't like going. Um, but she just starts going crazy. So I'm like, all right, we're out of here. And then we pass a lady walk into that booth and she starts barking at her too. And we get back to the car and we get in, and I don't correct her. I don't punish her or anything. I just tell her good job. And, but yeah, she was noticing that there was something off and
Mm-hmm.
didn't even realize it. Now, was there an actual perceived threat? No, but there's that third dimension you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the spiritual world that a dog can see. And we believe it's made up of like vibrations and everything. And science proven like everything has a vibration to it, right? Everything is created of energy. So we believe the dog can see that energy, that vibration field that's put out there, and that like aura, I guess you could say. Um, and then of course, if you spell dog backwards, it's God. So we believe that they are put on this earth for us to guide us through life. We got to listen and watch and learn from these dogs because they can see that spiritual side that we can't see. Um, and if we listen, they can really help us out a lot.
Yeah. So you got Quill, you stood up your foundation. What's the process that you go through to train a dog?
So in the beginning, we were getting dogs that was outside of the dogs we're currently using now. They were from vetted breeders that I used, and they're good dogs. Um, but the more and more I get into things, and the more problems that may pop up or different things, um, I just noticed that hey, we gotta change it up a little bit, right? We need a little. There's a little more to dog breeding than just breeding a dog, right? And I did the research and everything. But nobody in the dog world can agree on anything, right? Because everybody kind of has their own way of doing things, and trainers, they can be 30 master trainers in one room. They can all accomplish the same task, but none of them will 100% agree with each other on how to get to that. So, so I had to learn it right my way and everything. And, it just, putting it all together um to figure out what worked is basically for me been trial and error, right? um so what we decided this last year was to start our own breeding program. So I went out and purchased some bloodlines, so we can start breeding and get the type of dogs exactly what we are wanting to do. Because um, dogs are great, but temperament and genetic wise is key, because I want these dogs to live 10 to 15 years working for our guys and gals. Because yeah, we're seeing the guys are getting to a point to where they're fixing themselves at about the 5 year mark, but not everybody's going to heal evenly, right? So I need these dogs to be long-term fixes for these guys and gals. And so that's when we decided to start our own breeding program. And so now we breed our own dogs. We give out 6 every year, and it takes 14 months to get these dogs into shape. Originally, we were doing it a year at a time, and the first couple of dogs we started training using cortisol levels. And cortisol is the stress hormone that we produce while we're beginning to build stress and before we have a PTSD attack, right? And that stress can come out as anxiety, irritability, depression, whatever that trigger brings out. It comes out, and it's all stress induced. So we were thinking, and we were like, all right, all these other organizations out here, they're training obedient dogs that react to attacks. I said, well, what would it take if my dog can track, and my dog, and there's, you hear all these stories about epileptic dogs, and diabetic dogs, and dogs sniffing out COVID and all this different stuff, and cancers. So I say, well, why can't we address that stress the same way? So I did some research, and I learned that we could collect cortisol samples out of saliva, sweat, bodily fluids, and then we could train the dogs to recognize cortisol changing from a baseline going up pre-attack, right? Pre-full-blown PTSD attack. And so I've come up with a program where I train the dogs to recognize the cortisol levels changing. And what happens is as the guys and gals gets that trigger, before they notice something happens, the dog is smelling that cortisol level rising from a baseline, right? And that base is just the calmest, coolest, most relaxed they can be. But each time you get a trigger, that cortisol level rises. So that dog smells that cortisol level rise. They come in, they force their handler to pet. Well, it's been proven scientifically that when you pet a dog, it lowers your cortisol and you get a dopamine spike or hit. And when that happens, there's no stress there. So how can you have stress or no stress and have a PTSD attack? You can't. So what I've ultimately done was being able to train our dogs to prevent up to 98% of the PTSD attacks from ever occurring. And we do that by collecting, like I said, cortisols and baselines and full-blown attacks, and then training that dog using those scent to recognize it going up. They come in to prevent that attack from happening when you pet that dog, and then you don't have an attack. And what we're seeing is after 5 years of preventing these attacks, we're getting the guys and gals cortisol levels back down to normal. And I'm a perfect example of that. 6 years ago, 7 years ago, you would not want to be around me. I was still suicidal. I was angry. I was that angry white man that, in special forces, they tell you, don't be the angry American going over there. We need to win hearts and minds. And so I was that angry American, that angry white guy. And if it wasn't for my dog, preventing as many attacks as he did, I don't think I would be in the situation I am today. And I tell you, I would never have been in a situation to open up a nonprofit because he gave that stability to me by lowering that cortisol levels and getting my baseline, and me allowing me to be able to control and manage that cortisol through the dog, right? Because even after the dog prevents it from coming up, the dog can actually keep it from coming up all the time because, he's there with us every turn, right? That's why they're following us, because we've created that bond, and they just want to be with us. And people say, well, your dog is an exact replication of your handler, and it's true, right? Because they are fed all that energy out of us. That energy from us goes into that dog, and that vibration in that spiritual world, and that dog reacts to that energy. And that's how our philosophy works, right? So when you're out and about with your dog Kiowa, and like the witches thing, right? Um, I truly believe that she sensed that negative energy, that red aura that people would tell you in that world, right? And or that dark aura, or however it is. Um, she senses that, and then in return, she's letting you know she's reacting to that energy, right? Same thing goes when it comes to the handler itself. When you start getting frustrated with your dog, or if you're in a bad mood, your dog's not going to listen to you because they know that, hey, and a lot of people don't believe this philosophy, but it's proven itself time and time again. And all the dogs that I've given out, the guys tell me the same thing. The wives tell me the same thing. These dogs are reading the energy and are able to change my energy by acting out and me trying to do that communication. So it's all kind of a complete circle. You need the dog to read the energy. You need that dog to act out based off of that energy. And then you need to be able to address that energy with communications, because once you start addressing the issue, then that's how you fix yourself, right? And before, we just avoided it, right? We would change the subject, or we work on something different. Now, our dog, that energy is coming from us to the dog, and now we have to address it because that's what we do. We're fixers. So when we start fixing that energy in the dog, it's fixing us in the long run. And then you tag team that with the dog getting you out and doing the house and getting you off the couch. It's a win-win. And that kind of gets us into the next part of what we do with our service dogs as an organization is getting these guys off the couch through means of, making themselves money, making themselves a living. Because it's great to have a service dog, but you can't always take a service dog to your job work. A waiter or somebody like that's not going to be able to have a service dog at work, right? Uh, Somebody sitting in an office, sure, they can have a service dog at work, but the 9 out of 10 guys that I deal with, they don't want to sit in offices. They're combat guys. They're special forces. They're infantry guys and gals, and you know they're people that can't sit still. They have to be doing something. So what better way to fix that than to give them a job using their dog? Oh yeah, and at the same time, that dog is providing them a medical uh, response for their PTSD.
I want to go back to the cortisol. So when you train that, do you train it specific to each person, or is it like a generic
That's
training?
right. So we train the cortisol specific to each dog and each person, and the way we do that is um, currently we we have people that puts in applications to uh, be part of our program. And right now we're working out of the house, but I'm hoping to change that this coming year. I'm looking at getting some property and building a training facility, which is going to allow me to do everything I need to do with therapy and everything. But currently we're doing all the dog stuff here at my house, and it takes me that 14 months to train them, and only 2 months of that is the cortisol side of it, right? So what we do is the last 4 months out, we start having the veteran and law enforcement's collecting their cortisol. And the way it looks is, every time they have a trigger, right, they put in this dental cotton ball into their mouth and they get it wet. And then they throw it in a bag and they label it trigger. And then they give me a baseline when they're most calm, cool, and relaxed and comfortable. They'll give me a collection of those. And then when you have a full-blown PTSD attack, I'll get a collection of them as well. And I want that just to show the dog that, hey, this is the outcome if you don't catch the triggers, right? Because the dog's and triggers happen so fast and the dogs can't catch those triggers 100% of the time. They got to be able to comfort the guys and gals after the fact. So that's why we do the full blown PTSD attack collection as well. But what happens is once we ID'd who's getting what dog, that's when we go ahead and 4 months before they're getting their dog to receive their dog, they're collecting their cortisol for us, right? That way we're able to match the dog with the handler's cortisol levels. And what that does for us is it does two things, right? It has the dogs working right out of the chute because they know the scent, right? They know their handler. We don't bond with the dogs. So it takes about 45 days for these dogs to bond with their handler. Plus, on top of that, so they're looking to bond, and now they've been trained with their handler's cortisol. So it's kind of a match made in heaven type situation, right? Because now the dog has no choice but to know, hey, this is my job, right? I smell it. I know this handler, everything. So immediately these dogs are able to start picking up on cortisol levels as soon as I hand them over to these guys. Now, one thing we have seen, because we've had to change dogs around, we've had to change 2 dogs out of the 17 that we've given out. Uh, but what we have seen is we don't have to necessarily go back and do retraining on cortisol once a dog is trained on an individual cortisol. Um, the training basically puts the dog in a position to know, hey, this is my job. This is what is expected of me. And so cortisol is cortisol is cortisol. Yeah, my understanding of cortisol, it's different from person to person, but not really, right? It's still cortisol is cortisol. It's just it may have their scent to it, right? Or the level numbers might not be as strong as the next guy. But once the dog realizes, hey, my job is to smell cortisol, the dog is going to naturally pick up on that new person's cortisol levels. And you're one of the guys that's had this happen. Have you noticed your dog Iowa picking up on your stuff?
Yeah.
And it's pretty quick, I imagine.
So she was given to someone else. They couldn't keep her. They gave her back to you, and then you gave her to me. And so she
Yep.
wasn't trained on my cortisol levels, but for both me and Sarah, when there's something going on that one of us is getting worked up about anything, she will come, and there's moments she'll just come lay her head in our lap. And then there was another time I was at a fall festival and she was literally crawling into my lap to get my attention because, again, like I said, I'm uncomfortable in large situations with a lot of people. And here's a couple hundred people. I don't know any of them. And she couldn't get close enough to me for me to give
Mm-hmm.
her attention. And so, I was just sitting there. She'd crawl up in my lap. I'd give her attention, give her lots of love. And then we'd get up and we'd walk around. And
Yep.
that process, and then everybody wanting to see her and wanting to pet her. And I'm like, nope, can't pet her. She's a service dog, but thank you. It takes my mind off what I'm focusing on of being self-conscious, getting into my own head. And she's like, nope, you focus on me.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
I think you'll remember, excuse me, when I got the dog, we were at your house doing training. We went to the women's PGA fundraiser thing that they were having. And I didn't know it, but you're like, and this is Brandon over here with Kiowa, and he's a service member and he's getting his dog. And I immediately just got self-conscious, like, oh my gosh, here's 50, 60 women looking at me. And she just immediately started going, Brandon, give me attention, give me attention. And so I stopped focusing on everybody else and just gave all my attention to her.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
together.
that's part of it. So that's one thing these dogs do is it redirects your focus, right? Because now if I have, it's kind of like a kid, right? When you have a kid, you're focused on the kid out in public, kind of everything else kind of washes away. Well, the dog is the same way. Uh, when you start having to focus on the dog for one reason or the other, and it's because he's forcing you to do that, everything else kind of just melts away. And you're able to do that because, for one, the breed that we use, you're safe, right? Because our breeds are natural protectors. Um, and I don't say protectors as like they're going to go bite somebody, but they're going to alert if there's a threat there, or if if they need to block or something, they will block. Um, but they're super smart. They're very obedient dogs, and they're one person dogs. Now, just like you and your wife, they will support the family around them because that you guys are a pack, right? And a lot of people don't think there's a pack mentality in dogs, but there definitely is. There's a hierarchy. Your dog knows that you're the boss. She also knows that your wife is over her, and then she also knows that the kids are over her. Um, but she also knows that dog also knows that there's a pecking order and where she falls within that pecking order. So, we're big believers that, there is a pack mentality. Um, and that's why when a dog comes into a family, that dog can help the whole family out. It doesn't have to be just a one individual, right? And that's why she's picking up on your wife's stuff as well, because just because she's bonding with you, and that's what our main mission is, right? Is to make sure your stuff's taken care of. But when ultimately, if she can do it with you and the rest of the family, why not? It's a win. And we believe strongly that the type of service dogs that we train and put together, build, whatever you want to say, um, it's okay to let others pet them, because if you think about it, when somebody else pets your dog, guess what? They're getting help themselves as well, right? Because it's going to help them. Uh, and I think you've seen it with my dog, Quill. I've had him for about 7 years now. He's 8 years old, and now he's more of a mascot for me and the nonprofit. Yeah, he still goes with me in a lot of places and most of the time, but I don't need him as much as I used to. But now what I do is allow other people to pet him, even if he's working, because my dog is bonded with me, and there's nothing he's gonna not do. Like he can still smell and sense everything while he's getting petted by somebody else, right? And my dog's a perfect example. I'll be giving a speaking engagement or educating group, and I just let people know, hey, if my dog comes up to you, you can pet him. He's doing his job, and it never fails. Every speaking event, my dog will find one or two people within that crowd and sit there and let them pet him, because he is recognizing their cortisol levels and their stress levels.
Interesting. Yeah, Kai's not there yet. We were at a coffee shop
No,
the other day, and she jumped up to go get pets from somebody else, and yeah, she got a little correction in the coffee shop. But
yeah, and that's perfectly fine, right? Because we want to make sure they're there, but at some point, you're gonna want her to help others as well, especially when you see what it's done for you, right? So, and we're okay with, like, still to this day, as people get on my say, hey, you're the handler. If you want to allow a kid to come pet your dog, what's wrong with being nice? And now, situation always determines, right? If you got 20, 30 screaming kids around you, you might not want to let one kid pet him, right? Uh, but typically we say no fighting age males, because we still want them to be that kind of protector, right? We want to be able to use them as a blocking force or to a deterrent from anything bad happening. And if our dog is just always looking to get petting from somebody else, uh, that's the bad thing. So we are picky about who we let them pet, because we don't want to desensitize them. But at the same time, if we can help others, it's always a good thing to help others. And you're going to find, as y'all's bond grows and the obedience gets more in place with you guys, uh, you're going to be able to get more interaction with people, and that interaction and seeing other people happy and helping others is going to help you as well in the long term. And we count on that in the dogs over, a period of time.
well, Sarah laughs at me all the time. Every time we're out, people start talking to me, and I hate it. But they're like, "Oh, what kind of dog is that? How old is she? Is that a boy or a girl? What's her name? What kind of breed is she?" All these things. And we're at Harris Teeter, and I'm talking to like 3 different people. And a year ago, that would not be me. Um, Heck, most days that's not me still. And she just starts laughing. She goes, "I just think this is so funny to see you forced into these situations now because of your dog."
Yeah,
But
and that's part of it, right? So the dog forces you to get in situations where you don't want to be. But honestly, to heal from our mental health and our issues we have to get back in society and interact with people.
yeah,
And the only way to do that is really have a reason. And that dog is the number one reason to get involved with other people.
yeah. You've mentioned the breed a couple of times, but you haven't specified which one it is, and I don't want to misspeak. So what breed of dog do you train?
Yeah,
Yes.
so our breeding dogs are Belgian Malinois Dutch Shepherds, and we do a little bit with the Shepherd side as well. Um, but what we breed for purpose, not for looks or pureness in the bloodlines. Uh, we need genetics to be pure, not and pure in a way of, you know, a healthy dog, a stable dog, a dog with a temperament that can deal with 20 screaming kids or deal with a sporting event. We just gave a dog away at the Ravens game on Thanksgiving Day, and there was over probably 40,000 people in the stadium. The pup that we presented to a veteran was 10 months old. We didn't have one issue with that dog. So we got to be able to have these dogs in situations to where uh they can handle the stress, number one, right? And that's kind of what we do, right? So these Belgian Malinois, Dutch Shepherds, German Shepherds, they're all known for their smartness and their adaptability and learning. So that's one reason why we use them. Plus, our guys and gals, that's what they're used to working with downrange, right? So your military and law enforcement, they both have switched over to like the Malinois bloodlines because of their skill levels and their smarts and just their capabilities. Um, so we decided to use those bloodlines, and it's a win-win because it allows the dog to really tune in with their handler. Then once that the connection is made and that bond is ready for them to get off the couch and get moving in society and get them back to work. Now they have a dog that they can use for work itself. So once these guys get them, I bring these guys back if they're wanting to do it, and we do free training for them. Now at this point, they have to pay for their way to come back, but I give them free training skills as far as, search and rescue, human remains detection, um, narcotics, if that's what they want to do. We also we do bomb schools. So if any of the guys or gals have like post 9/11 GI Bill or Oak Rehab, these guys, once they get their dog and they're bonded and I give them a blessing, they can now go to AK9 International and became a bomb certified team. And now the guys and gals are able to make money. They can work for TSA doing bomb sniffing, but their dog is still primarily their medical device because they can still work and still detect cortisol. So it's a win-win in our book. It gets the guys and gals off the couch. It gets them a mission and a purpose in life. And then it also gives them a way to make some money and make a living. Because I know for me, I could not work for anybody. When I first got out, I tried. And because of my military training and stuff, I don't know if I could really go work for anybody now in place. Um, but as my own boss, I can go out and I can make a living and I can help and use my dog to help me with that. So that's just that next level that we do with these dogs. Like, yeah, they're medical service dogs, but the goal is also to get them off the couch, and we can get them off the couch by giving them a means to go back.
So I know you've done some stuff across the country after hurricanes. Share a little bit about Helene and the flooding that happened out in Texas earlier this year.
Yeah, so last year, our names started to get out, and we were requested to bring dogs up to Western North Carolina um, for Helene. And we spent 3 weeks up there with another organization called H4ACE, Heroes for Humanity. And we created the total package for them. So we had the medical field side that they provided. We had financing for helping the community out, and then they brought in the dogs um, for locating missing people, right? And of course, 100% of those people were deceased or no longer with us. And but the end goal was, hey, we want to bring closure to these families. So what we did was me and Quill went to North Carolina for 3 weeks, and we provided a service to our community. And then again in Texas, Central Texas, along the Guadalupe, we went back out there for another 8 days, and we did the same type of stuff, looking for missing kids, missing people after the floods on the Guadalupe. And that in of itself is a big way to help yourself, right? Because you're helping others, and it's providing a purpose again. So for us, everything's all about providing that purpose and mission, that next chapter in the guys and gals' lives. And the dogs is a perfect way to do that, because it allow them to work and use that dog to make a living or just volunteer their time. All of what we do during natural disasters is provided through our nonprofit. So our nonprofit pays the expenses. And what we typically do is when we're off on these type of trips is we send out a Facebook, social media blast saying, hey, for this time, this month, all proceeds are going to go towards our mission, providing search and rescue release or human remain detection while on the ground. And then once we're done with that mission, we come back. And then all those funds now go back to the general donations for providing service dogs to our veterans and law enforcement. And those donations cover all the travel for the guys and gals to Myrtle Beach, food that they eat, all the lodging. We pay for 100% of all their expenses coming to Myrtle Beach while they're in Myrtle Beach getting the training for the week, and the following classes that they have to do until they get their dog.
So talk a little bit about what's in the future for you guys and how people can get in contact and support.
So the future brings the next level to our organization. We're currently in the process of looking for some property, getting ready to make a put in a bid for a piece of property. And I'm going to personally purchase that property. That way the nonprofit doesn't have a bill. I'm trying to keep the nonprofit 100% of its money going to getting these dogs to the guys and gals. Nobody gets paid currently. We're all volunteer organization. But it's important for us to make sure these dogs are getting out. And the number one thing that usually stops it is either the guys don't think they deserve it, or the gals don't think they deserve it, or they just don't have the funding to do it. So that's why we just pay for it all. I got this property coming in, and our plans is to use a nonprofit to actually put up a training facility building on this property. That way, we can start the next evolution of the training, and that's canine therapy, right? So what we want to do is we want for 18 different individuals through the military and law enforcement to be able to come to Myrtle Beach every year or every 14 months and go through a therapy program using our dogs. And the way it would look is they would go through tasks under stress. I'm able to assess the guys and gals that's going through to see if they're faking it or if they really have an issue going on. And if the issue is something that we can address, right? And then the second part of that is let's assess these dogs. Who's the dog trying to bond with? Who's the dog trying to work with? So nothing we do is cookie cutter. It's not your typical service dog training program. Our dogs aren't trained the same. They're all trained a little bit different, and it's based off the needs of the veteran. So we match the veteran or that law enforcement with their dog through the therapy portions of the classes, and then that way we're able to make the perfect match and address all the issues altogether. Currently, we don't do that. Right now, it's basically word of mouth, and I rely on my guys and girls like yourself that received the dog already because you know the program, you know the philosophy, uh, to give me names and send people our way uh, to to get that help that they need and to go to the website and to fill out that application. And that's how it all starts, right? Is the first thing the guys and gals have to do, they need to go to our website, and it's JTFK, the number 9, s.org. And or you can go to .com or .net. It all go back to the .org. Um, you go through there, you go to our programs, and it will list the therapy program and the service dog program. And then we also do a family program, right? So we're not only helping out our veterans and law enforcement, but when they come back for a second part of training, we bring back a spouse, a caregiver, a family member, some type of emergency contact. That way, the family or somebody involved with the veteran or law enforcement knows how to handle that dog in case the handler can't handle the dog, right? So we do that as part of this of the healing process and making sure these dogs are set up for success and the guys and gals are set up for success. Um, and then once everybody's got their training, then the dog goes out completely free. But it's as simple as just filling out an application, and you usually a couple of days to a week after the application comes in, we reach out to the veteran or law enforcement, and I have a one-on-one talk with them. If a dog is going away somewhere on the West Coast, because we do have we have a my president of my board is out in Vegas, so we're looking at setting up our next chapter out there. And so the last 2 years, he's given out one dog out at his location, right? So we're training a dog out there. So he's kind of covering the West Coast, and then we're giving 5 from the Myrtle Beach area or our headquarters, as you can see. And so Um, once that evaluation and everything's been done, we're going to take 2 people out of each of those therapy classes, and we're going to award those 2 people a dog. So out of 18 therapy help that comes through the doors, uh, 6 of those will receive dogs. And what we've seen and what I've seen work with other organizations, this is really the best way to match dog up. Is actually have the guys and gals come in, work with the dogs under stressful conditions to see who can handle what, who's trying to bond, where's the match at. And then once that match is made, that's when we start IDing, and then we start rolling into the next step, which is collecting cortisol. And so probably another 4 months after that. So we try to do the therapy. We're going to try to start the therapy around 8 months into the process. And then that way it gives us 4 months to pick the guys and to get the cortisol collected. And then at that 12-month mark, that cortisol samples are sent to us. The last 2 months of the dog's training is nothing but cortisol. And then we bring the family member and the veteran back for their last visit and train up. And the dog goes home with them completely free. We cover all their travel, like I said, to come out here, food, lodging. And then their next step is additional training. And again, the only thing they need to do is provide a means to get to Myrtle Beach. And we're hoping next year Um, we will have everything in place and up and running by March sometime.
That's awesome. Um, excuse me. I want to address one thing you said about people not feeling like they deserve it. Um, that was me when I came to you. So we met through Gina and a mutual friend, and my wife was like, "You need to get a service dog," and I'm like, "I don't want a service dog because I'm not a pet person." And any of my family listening to this will attest to that. That I do not like animals, and in my mind, I like it until I get them, and I'm like, "I don't want this dog." Um, and that's why we have multiple dogs because I choose to get one, and then it's just not my thing. It sounds good in my mind, not on paper.
Right.
Um, and so I was very hesitant. I was like, I don't need one because if I need one, then that I have to admit to myself that I'm broken.
Exactly.
I have to admit that I've got a problem, and I need help. And Sarah's just like, you need to get one. I think it'd be really good for you. So I just happened to be in Myrtle Beach when you sent me, or you called me. And you're like, hey, let's set up a time. And I'm like, I'm here. So I came over to your house like 2 days later. And I was very hesitant. I was nervous because I'm like, man, I don't want this guy to like just feel sorry for me and give me a dog just because we're in third group together or any of this stuff. And I left, uh, and I called Sarah and I was in tears just because, and then she started crying, of course, but just because I felt the impact. Like the initial dog you were going to give me was Bear. And then when
Hmm.
you learn how many kids I've got, you're like, I'm going to give you a different dog. And that's how I got hooked up with Kiowa. And, but I went from not being a pet person to I called you the other night talking about how Kai had hurt her ankle and I
Hmm.
was concerned. Here I am, night and day. She's like yelping, trying to get out of her kennel. I'm picking her up. She's peeing on me. I'm carrying her into the front yard. And it's like, not saying I'm a pet person still, but I am my service dog person.
There you go. So that's key, right? Because they're not pets. They really aren't. At one day, yeah, she'll be a pet to you. She'll be the most obedient pet to you that you've ever seen. But for now, she's got one mission, and that's to be a service dog and to help you get better. And that's what it's all about, right? And then once you get better, you'll know, and you'll start being a little lenient and looser on her and everything. But it's amazing, and I know what you're saying because at this point, I would do anything for my dog. If my dog was at risk of dying and I can actually save the dog, then I'm gonna do it, right? Um, because my dog saved me, and I tell everybody, I said, "Look, especially when you're out working with the dog, my dog, when we're out doing these, natural disasters," and that's one of our pillars for the nonprofit, right, is natural disaster response. Um, but when we're out doing these natural disasters, my dog always first. My dog eats first. My dog lays down to rest first. It's just like the military. Priorities of work kicks in, and I am the last with the priority because my dog takes care of me, provides me a service, and loves me.
And I think that's part of the thing. It puts us military people back in that mindset of being in the military. Cause like you said, the priorities of work, it's like you take care of your weapon
Yep.
before you take your boots off and change your socks.
Yep.
Because that's the thing that's going to save your life. And
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, so
Exactly. And that's part of the philosophy, right? Is getting these guys back in that military mindset that they left because a lot of our guys spent years in the military and it kept them alive and it made them who they were. Not technically, but let's face it, you spend that much time in the military and do the type of stuff you do in the military. it's going to change. It is going to make you who you are today. The good thing about it is we don't want to lose who you are. We just need to make sure we can manage and keep everything on. And if we use the dog right, that's exactly what it's for. That dog is a service dog to get you off the couch. That dog is a service dog that gets you to helping others again, providing a purpose again. Because when you leave the military, people leave the military. They turn their back on everything. They don't have a purpose no more. They're not motivated. And my main goal is to get them back in that military mindset, doing things that they know of. And it's a strife. The guys really do turn around and their whole life changes once we get them back into that mindset. So we don't play love language stuff or none of that. We're straight up honest. I don't beat around the bush with these guys and gals. I tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear, and what these dogs are capable of doing. And because that's what they need. We don't need to pamper these guys and gals. They don't need to be coddled. They need to be put back in a military mindset, because guess what? That military mindset kept them alive for many years, right? They don't have to be on high alert no more because we got the dog for that. But it allows them to still keep that military bearing. And that's where they need to get back to. That's the first thing I left. When I left the military, was my military bearing left. Turn my back on everything military, friends. And it wasn't until I started putting that structure back in my life, until I got my life situated. And that's kind of what the dogs do, right? Because there's so much structure you have to do for these dogs. Right? They're not pets. You set the limits, the left and right limits. So when I train these guys and I train these dogs, I train it like you were training privates in the military. And we get them right back into that military mindset, to where they're now in control of their life and not relying on the environment to predict the situation and the outcome. Because the outcome, where that's going. It's going to lead to suicide. So if we can stop that by using a dog, and the dog's just one small part of it, right? We believe the healing process is like a pie, and the dog is just one slice of it. You got to do it mentally. You got to do it physically. You got to do it nutritionally. You got to do it spiritually. There is a higher being, and that's why we're faith-based nonprofit. That's why we believe in God. God is part of that equation. Even if you like it, if you're religious or not, if you don't address that spiritual side of it, you're never going to heal yourself, because ultimately God can heal all. And then we think that the dog is there given to us from God. So it's just a part of it.
I love it, man. And I've definitely started using your healing as a pie analogy. It's so true. Keith, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. And if we can get back on again, or if you got anybody that needs help, send them our way. I'm hoping like I said, come March, I'm hoping to have everything up and running where we can really get things in place. And then my next step is get that next chapter open and we can give out more dogs. So, we'll see where we're at in a couple of years.
All right, man. I'll have links for your website and all of your stuff at the bottom of this podcast and all our social media stuff.
Awesome. Sounds good, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. You have a great day. God bless.